Hello, everyone. It's Hallie. We will get started in just a moment. Thanks for being here. All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. We greatly appreciate it. This webinar is being recorded, so you will receive a copy of the recording pretty much immediately afterwards. So look out in your email for that. Um, I'm going to just do some quick housekeeping items before we dive in to let anyone else hop on the call. So this will be recorded. Check your email for that. We're excited to welcome any Georgia State alumni and also friends as well. And also, we are streaming live on YouTube. You should be able to hear me okay, as well as see my slides as well. So please let me know if for any reason you can't see my slides. Let's go ahead and dive in. So we are talking today about how to host a successful virtual meeting. And I feel like even though it's been many years since COVID, I think a lot of us are still learning how to do this effectively because public speaking, even when it's virtual, can be a little bit stressful for people. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And for those of you who have not attended a webinar with us yet, I am Hallie Crawford. I'm a certified career coach, speaker, and author. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, but we have coaches in different parts of the country. I've been coaching and training since 2002. I have an undergraduate degree from Vanderbilt University and the University of Illinois, a master's degree as well. And we love helping people find and thrive in jobs that they truly enjoy and really, really love. And that's why we're here today to talk about virtual meetings, because there's kind of an art form to this. So the reason why understanding and getting better at virtual meetings is because public speaking is one of the top 10 fears that most people have. I don't remember the exact number of the other ones and what priority they are, but public speaking is one of them. Moving, I'm sure, is another one, and down the list. And public speaking in a virtual setting can add like pros and cons to things. Some people feel a little bit more comfortable speaking virtually, but they're not as good as, for example, putting the right things on their slides or dealing with people talking over each other. So there's a lot of different things to consider here. And there's the pros and cons listed on this next slide here. The cons are that with virtual meetings, the distractions can be more frequent because, especially if we're working from home, dogs, kids, etc. In some cases, I think that people feel like they can be a little bit more informal in a virtual setting. And we want you to be careful about that, because what we've noticed with our clients is in some cases their attire is more casual and a little too casual. We heard from a client the other day that she's a recruiter actually for Ronstadt and had to fly up to talk with one of their candidates to explain to her that she needed to dress more professionally because people were kind of balking at how she dressed, even though she was an amazing candidate. So be careful of just assuming that we can be so much more informal. We've heard people too tell us that some of their coworkers, it looks like they're sitting on their bed or something like that. That's not okay. It's a different way of connecting with others, obviously. And then we all know about this Zoom fatigue if we look under our list of cons here at the top of this first slide. The pros are it's obviously very convenient. We can include more people across the country, et cetera. It is a way to get to know people more personally because, for example, if you're looking at their home office, they may have a picture on the wall or their kid may come in or something like that, and you learn more about who they are as a person. And the pros, too, is that you get to use extra technology, like there's different ways that you can collaborate, et cetera. So we've got to manage around those cons and kind of leverage the pros, if you will. And some of the most common obstacles to public speaking in general, and then on the next slide, I'll show you our agenda for today in the next 20 or so minutes, is that people tend to struggle with, they're not clear about their direction. Like, what is it I'm trying to achieve through this presentation? And how do I achieve that? What do I want to say in order to support that goal? People need to be really clear about what their goals are for each of these meetings. Sometimes we hop into them and just kind of go with it. And instead, we need to take a step back to say, okay, what do I need to accomplish during this virtual meeting? Number two is people lack confidence. I'm not a good enough presenter. Someone else could give a better presentation, etc. And number three is, in some cases for people, just the nerves. Like some people feel more comfortable doing presentations in person. So one of the first things we would recommend that you do is write down your biggest obstacle to dealing with or being effective with virtual meetings, because that's going to help you understand which agenda item from what we're talking about today is going to apply to you the most. So here's what we're going to discuss today: the setting, the objective, and the content, and how to manage that. Communication style and having the right one, being confident, and the use of technology as well. And we're going to cover all of these. As a reminder, you'll get a copy of the recording. And if you'd like to learn more about our coaching services to help you with this specific topic or anything else with your career, we'll give you that information along the way too. So first of all, let's talk about number one, attire. Err on the more formal and more professional side. If you're not sure what to wear, err on the side of being more professional. Make sure that you're not wearing stuff like too busy patterns. Make sure that your hair looks good, everything else. Get on the Zoom call early to make sure that everything looks okay. And I know this sounds silly. I think we all know better these days, but what if you do have to hop up? So make sure that everything that you're wearing is professional. Shave if you're a man, et cetera, et cetera. Your look and your appearance is part of your brand. People are going to make assumptions about you based on that. So you want to make sure you look clean, buttoned up. As part of the setting, there are several things on this next slide we want to focus on too. Make sure that when you're giving a virtual presentation or managing a meeting, that you're not waving your hands around too much or doing something that's distracting. Make sure that your phone and anything else is on silent. Get on the video early to make sure your lighting and appearance and everything else is okay. Some people, and I know this sounds silly, but we still hear it from our clients, they are on a team call and people are sitting way too close and you're like looking up their nose. They're sitting way too far back and it feels like they're too far in the distance. So make sure your proximity to the camera is the right one, that your background behind you is appropriate. There are all these cool backdrops that you can buy on Amazon now that can do that, or you can have a virtual background. Lighting is really important too. And make sure that before the meeting, well in advance, you know where the mute buttons are and all of the technology buttons are. And make sure too, as part of sitting close or not, that you've got the correct camera angle, okay? As part of the setting with your etiquette too, you want to make sure at the very beginning that everybody can hear you and they can see your slides, whatever is needed for that time. There was a time when I forgot to check sound with my participants and also if they could see my slides, and not halfway through, luckily, but a couple minutes in, someone mentioned it. So it's important for you to say at the beginning, just want to double check. Can everyone hear me, see my slides, whatever is appropriate for that day. The second thing on this next slide here is you want to err on the side of using more formal language and not using slang or lingo, especially if there's people from different departments that are on that meeting or presentation. It's okay to do so depending on the situation, but just consider that and keep it in mind. The third thing that you want to do is make sure you have a backup plan. What if your computer goes on the fritz and you're about to have to lead a presentation? This has happened to me before. I keep my old laptops so that I can use them if I need to. I also have a way to do the presentation on my phone. So make sure that you've got a backup plan in case things aren't working the way you want to, so that you don't have to just reschedule. Make sure that you've dealt with distractions, dog, anything else, and be mindful of the time of the presentation. And if you feel like this is something that you struggle with a little bit, have someone else keep time for you. Ask one of your teammates or someone else to do that, or set an alarm in some way that's quiet on your phone that will buzz to remind you. As part of the etiquette, you don't want to eat unless you're in a really informal meeting with colleagues and you let them know in advance that's what you're doing. Coffee or water is okay. Make sure that you mute yourself as appropriate and you ask other people to do so as well, so that it's not distracting to anyone. Make sure that you are not multitasking and showing the right screen. And if there would be anything that's on the screen that could be private or confidential, just really make sure you practice with that in advance of the presentation too. And if you've got some people, if you're in a type of presentation where you're allowing people to speak, with those people that are talkers, it's okay to interrupt them a little bit and say, that's a great idea. Let's table that for later. Let's be mindful of time, everybody. Please, let's just do a really quick 1 second check-in. With those people that are talkers, you may want to check in with them in advance or afterwards and say, happy to, answer any questions beforehand or afterwards, kind of make sure that they're okay. And it's a good idea too, if you do have people that may want to say something or ask a question during the course of your presentation or meeting, request those talking points in advance. Make sure that you set an agenda in advance for yourself, but get agenda items from everybody else so that, again, they don't hijack your meeting and you know what's coming and know what to include versus what to say, okay, look, let's table this for our next meeting, for example. So these are the first things. Tip number 1 is all about the setting and kind of etiquette that you want to pay attention to for yourself, but also ask others to do as well. The second thing you want to make sure you focus on is what's your objective and goal for the meeting, and how does that drive the content that you are going to present? So ask yourself before diving in and creating the agenda, what's the main objective of your meeting or presentation? Who is the audience? What do they need to get from this? What problem do you need to solve, or do they need to help you solve, whatever the purpose is, again? And you also want to think about not just what the tangible, practical goal is, but is there also a soft goal that you want to have for this particular meeting? Does your team need some encouragement or guidance? Do you need to go over the details about something again because you're sensing people are frustrated or confused? So set the tangible outcome, but also set some intangible goals and outcomes as well, because that's going to help you really not just cover everything, but deal with any miscommunications that could arise later on, or any conflict or anything else that may be going on that you need to help work with. As part of your objective and your content and setting your goals, make sure that your slides, if you do have them, even if it's just a few of them to help keep time and keep everybody on track, that they're clean and visually appealing, easy to read. You don't want to have too much content on there, and include images. Now, if you're having more of a get to work kind of task oriented meeting, you may be showing an Excel spreadsheet or an image of something else. Get all of those lined up in advance, make sure they're easy to read and understand, and you're prepared on how to drag those into the screen or share the different tab. Practice with that in advance too. When you're timing out your presentation or your meeting, you want to give yourself about 1 minute per slide. And it's a really good idea to practice it at least 2 or 3 times. And you can time it so that if you need to, you get a sense of if you're saying too much, if you can add more, etc. It's a really nice idea, again, depending on the type and purpose of the meeting, to have a handout that you provide people in advance, if it's appropriate to do so. And think about, for specific types of meetings, whether it would be helpful for people to do some homework in advance. We talked about the homework in advance of sending you agenda items, but there could be other things that you ask them to look into. If you are going to call on people or ask them to participate as part of the meeting, you want to make sure that you give them a heads up so that they're prepared. So just consider whether those are relevant or not for your specific type of meeting. And tip number 3, if we move to our third agenda item, is this is your communication and ensuring that you're being really confident during the course of and before your virtual meeting. So it's a really good idea, just like you might do when you attend like an in-person networking event. Have an icebreaker or like an intro prepared. Introduction to yourself. You can do a couple of housekeeping items. You make sure everyone can see everything, etc. But you may want to have a question that you want to ask the group to start out with, or a comment to make about a sporting event or something easy to just kind of break the ice, get things going. It could be as simple as, how's everyone doing? Does anyone have any comments or questions before we get started? But you just want to have some kind of intro. You're not just launching right into the content of the meeting. Make sure, especially for a virtual meeting, that you speak slowly and deliberately. And you need to do this a little bit more in a virtual meeting versus an in-person, because sometimes there may be, you need to account for lag time for audio. You also need to account for and manage people talking over each other. So with the people talking over each other, what you may need to say at the beginning is, for example, please know everyone, feel free to make any comments, verbally and in the chat as we go. And if people end up talking over each other by accident, just know I'll manage it. And then what you do is, if that happens, you can say, okay, hold on, everybody. I heard, Joe or Samantha or, whoever first. Let's go ahead with you. And then the next person will go after that. Just be willing to manage that as the leader of the meeting. And it's okay to do that. That's part of the deal. And people interrupting each other and talking over each other is a little bit tougher and a little bit harder to manage on a virtual meeting. And that's why we bring it up versus in person. Usually it kind of works itself out on its own. Remember too, that pausing is okay. It's okay if you need to pause to think for a second, if you need to pause before you answer someone's question because you need to think of the answer. Don't feel bad about having some quiet time. I think that people feel more awkward about quiet time in a virtual meeting, which I totally get because I have felt that way myself in the past. Just remember that that's okay. You may need to give people time to think, and it's okay for you to do it as well. Work on getting more comfortable with that. And as part of your communication, and then we'll talk in the next slide about building your confidence, is making sure that you're not, moving around too much. That can be distracting if you're on video. Do some deep breathing along the way. Make sure, A, that you're breathing at all, and take some deep breaths along the way too. Talk slowly and deliberately. Don't rush through what you're trying to say or ramble. That can come across as not just less professional, but a little bit less confident too. Imagine that you're talking to a friend, and it's okay along the way to check in with people in the meeting. Does that make sense? Does anyone need more clarification about that? Give them a minute to think about it. This is where it's okay to pause, but ask questions along the way to make it more like a natural conversation versus you're just puking out all of the information and no one else gets a chance to talk. That seems or can seem a little bit less natural. As part of building your confidence, these are the 4 things on this next slide that we recommend to help you boost it. Your attire can help you feel more confident. Visualizing how you want things to go, as well as practicing in advance. You can practice it with a friend or family member. And on the next slide, we'll talk about practicing recording just yourself and watch it back, even if it's just part of the presentation, to see how you're coming across. Having some affirmations in advance that you put on your bathroom mirror can help. And consider too, what are your typical obstacles? Like we said earlier, that tend to trip you up in virtual meetings or presentations, and have a plan for those. So anticipate those red flags and have a plan for dealing with them. Record yourself and play it back like we just said. Give or practice your presentation to a close friend and ask for their feedback. Another thing you can do to practice and boost your confidence is to attend webinars or listen to confident speakers on YouTube or podcasts. And that can give you a sense of some of the tricks and tips that they use to manage the audience and manage what they're saying. And there's also some great courses out there for public speaking. You can go to, and I'm totally blanking on what it is, Toastmasters locally for in-person help. But we like also free online courses like Coursera.org and LinkedIn Learning. You can attend a class to help you with tips on how to enhance your slides, for example. We always offer a free consult to anyone who is interested in our services. So please feel free to reach out if you would like to learn more about how we can help you with your virtual meetings and any other professional development. The consult is a chance for you to learn more about our services. We do give a discount for Georgia State alumni, so please reference how you heard about us and remind me when you talk with me that you came from Georgia State, because I will give you that coupon code to use on our website. Before we go today, let's talk about tip number 4, and this is the use of technology. This, I think, can be the most overwhelming for so many people. I'll tell you that when I do webinars for universities similar to this, but we have different universities that do different things, and also corporations. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll have another person on the call to help me manage the polls and also help manage the Q&A. So we make sure that I answer all of the questions. So if you need someone's help technology-wise, ask for it. Ask a coworker or someone else that can help you either with the slides or whatever makes the most sense. With your slides, you want to have either PDF or PowerPoint. That's what I usually use, but there's all different types of software that you can use for this. With the technology, we talked about camera angle already. You want to make sure, if you look on this next slide, if you're going to allow other people to be on camera or not. If that would be more distracting to the other people on the call, you want to maybe take them off or allow them to do it kind of halfway through. And make sure with technology, you are really familiar with all the features. The chat feature, make sure that you're paying attention to whether you're chatting with everyone on the call or just directly. The Q&A button, when will you handle questions as appropriate, and anything else that you want to leverage with technology as well. You can use AI to help you get ideas about how to leverage technology more effectively in your presentations. So you can ask ChatGPT, give me some of the newest technology that I can use to help with my presentations. And with technology, like we talked about earlier, log in well in advance. It may not have to be 30 minutes. As you get better with this over time, it may be like 10 minutes. But again, you want to make sure everything's working. Have a backup option. One time I had to, because my whole house, the power was completely out and my phone would not support well enough doing, connecting to my phone for the internet. I had to drive down the street and I hosted my webinar in the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot in my car attached to their Wi-Fi. So those are the worst case scenarios, but just have a backup option. When you want greater engagement for your presentation or your meeting, you want people to talk, ask questions more, etc., use video in those cases. And we already talked about this earlier. Ensure your background is clean and professional. And our last slide before we get to the action steps that we would like you to take afterwards is consider visual aids for greater engagement when you need that, when you're concerned, or if you're concerned that the topic you're presenting on may not be as jazzy or exciting for people, but you still need to present on it. Use pictures, use diagrams, use PowerPoint, have poll questions set up in advance, have some videos to show to kind of mix it up a little bit, and be ready to share content via links in the chat so people can go to certain links to check things out if that will help. And have at least, for the areas maybe that you feel a little bit less confident about or more nervous about, it's okay to have a little bit of a script in any of those segments. Now, we don't want you to be reading from a script the whole time. Absolutely not. That's not good. But if there are certain areas that you want to make sure you cover, it's okay to have a bit of a script for those sections or sections of your presentation. And finally, we would love it if before you go today, you would write down one action step that you will take in the next week to improve your presentation skills virtually. It could be, I'm going to practice before my next meeting and see how that helps me. It could be, I need to clean up my slides. If you would like to get a copy of our slides from today, we'd be happy to email those to you. You would just email us at admin@createyourcareerpath.com. And this is the same place where you can schedule a free consult call with us to find out if coaching is something that would be helpful for you at this point in your career for whatever your goals are. We help people with their resumes, their LinkedIn, their career transition, their job search, helping them figure out what the right career path is, and then and we coach our clients long-term to help them with virtual meetings, become a better leader and manager, etc. Thank you so much for your time today, everyone. We greatly appreciate it. This will be on LinkedIn, on YouTube, because I streamed it to YouTube Live. That's where the link will be for the recording. Look out for that in your email. And please, if you have any friends or family members that would benefit from coaching with us, feel free to let them know. We do that free consult and send along our website. Thank you again for your time today, everybody. We hope this was helpful for you as a starting point. Good luck and have a great day.